Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, friends. I must appeal to the Commonwealth not to eject anyone with eggs. I don't mind protest. I don't mind criticism. And I think we should all be and must be able to digest it and handle it. So if you have an egg, go ahead. In 2008, the people of the Maldives, for the very first time, had a multi-party presidential election. Before that, the Maldivian Democratic Party, as the first political party, was established in the Maldives in 2006. Since our birth, we have been able to galvanize the people of Maldives to political activism. We have been able to amend the constitution. We have been able to have our first multi-party presidential elections. We were able to have a multi-party parliamentary elections. We were also able to have the first local elections where local governments are now set in all the islands. And we were hoping as a society that we can move forward and consolidate our democracy. We knew the challenges. We knew it would be very, very difficult. It was becoming more and more obvious how easy it was to overthrow a dictatorship, but how difficult it is to uproot the remnants of the dictatorship. Its tentacles goes and its networks goes very far into society. Especially dictatorships tend to monopolize institutions rather than people. And at the same time, multinational institutions and academics are with the belief that everything is institutional building. But it's probably, I'm not suggesting that it is a mistaken belief that democracy or fairness can be established through simply strengthening institutions. Because I have been a person of the people, and because I very strongly believe that countries cannot be stabilized and democracy cannot be consolidated unless we have the people behind it and not necessarily just the institutions. When we came into government, all the institutions were handpicked by the former dictatorship. We came into government with a lofty idea that we will not prosecute Gayoom, that we will not go for a witch hunt of the previous regime, that we would want to run democracy to an extent where these issues can be dealt by the people and not necessarily in a courtroom drama. We did not arrest Gayoom. We did not disband Gayoom's party, unlike what seems to have happened in the Middle East. I am very often accused now by our own people that this was a mistake, that we did not deal with the dictatorship. We came into government not to arrest people. We came into government not to beat people up, but we came into government hoping that we will be able to have conversations, dialogue, discussions, and amicably settle issues. We understood how, in many senses, poor we were in strengthening our institutions and in strengthening the beliefs of our people in democracy. So I begged everyone. The Commonwealth Secretary General would have a number of letters from me asking the Secretary General to assist us in reforming our judiciary. The Prime Minister of England, United Kingdom, its government, Indian government, the German government, all these governments, I had written to them, asking them to assist us in building capacity in our institutions. Unfortunately, that did not come, but unfortunately, what came was a coup. Because we understood, because I clearly understood that there's bound to be a coup, but we were with the belief, with the idea that you will not tolerate a coup, that the international community will not tolerate a forceful transfer of power. They would only deal with a transfer of power that happened through the ballot box and nothing else. Comfortable with that idea, we felt that what was most important to do at that time was deliver to the people what they've been asking for so long, which was sewerage systems, water, social protection, education, and health. We were able to provide a good social protection program for the people of the Maldives. We gave free Medicare, free health care for all through a health insurance scheme. We provided for the old age with a pension. We were able to give benefits to single mothers, to orphans, and to the disabled. We were also able to provide a social housing program. That protected more than a third of the Maldives population. When we came into government, United Nations and everyone else was suggesting that a third of the Maldives population was below the poverty line and was earning less than $1 a day. We understood that human rights, the rule of law, and democracy must rest on people, and they can only do that when they are socially protected. In our view, in my view, for consolidation of democracy, you must first address and attend to the people. In 3.5 years, we were able to do that, and we've done it. It's all done. But unfortunately, because we did that, the old regime decided that they would have no option and no opportunity in an election. Therefore, they would have to force us out from government. Now, that is what happened on February 7th, 2012, this year. Very early in the morning of that day, or rather on the 7th, rather on the 6th, on the night of the 6th, two brigades or two sections, two platoons of the police started a demonstration in front of the Republican Square. They were calling for initially the resignation of the chief of police, and then later for my resignation. When they did not disperse, I asked the military to restrain them, and they said they will do it. I was waiting for them to do it until 5 in the morning of the 7th. When they did not do it, I felt that I had to have a look exactly what was going on. I went into the military headquarters. I found the place deserted, almost. There were only 200 people, 200 soldiers in there. And I later found out that they were in league with the mutinous police. The mutinous police, with the renegade soldiers, stormed the military headquarters. Their leader came in and told the generals inside that they would murder my wife, children, and my associates and the leaders of our party if I did not resign within 1 hour. I had already by this time seen the leaders of our party being beaten up right in front of my eyes, and all of this is documented with pictures. So I had no other option other than I was told by the generals to shoot at them. We did not come into government to shoot at people, even if there were mutinous police and renegade soldiers. So I did not want to open fire. but they were trying to storm the military headquarters. Fortunately or unfortunately, I had previously written a book of history of coups in the Maldives. So I know one when I see one. And I knew very well where the course of action was taking me and the country to. I felt that the best course of action at that time was to resign. And I resigned under duress. But we are now in a very comical situation where the Commonwealth, again, the institution for coups, in the Commonwealth, there are more coups in the Commonwealth than any other institution. And the Commonwealth has more experience in these kind of violent transfers of power than any other institution. The Commonwealth wanted to investigate the issue. I didn't think that there was any need for an investigation. We felt that it was fairly obvious. But I suppose they wanted to have some space and have some time. The Commonwealth report, or rather the Commission of National Inquiry, endorsed by the Commonwealth and by myself as well, have come out with the Commission report and have suggested that the transfer of power was perfect and legal. I do not agree with that, but I accept the report because I want to move forward. I don't think we can be bogged down on these issues and endlessly squabble about if it was a coup or not. For me, that is now an academic argument. I know what I saw, I know what I felt, and for me, it's really, really extremely comical that we are talking about it in this light. But also, as a former president, I understand in some manner the need for cover-ups in these issues. I know as the public, you'll be outraged by what I'm saying. But I would always advise people not to so much listen to governments. I know I've been in one of them, and hopefully very soon I'll be in it again. But always have a degree of skepticism when you hear anything official said by a government. But I think it would have been so difficult for the Commonwealth and for international community to say that it was a coup and then to try and reinstate me 8-9 months later. This has never happened, and it would never happen. And in Commonwealth's experience, they usually think that after a coup, the rebels would hold on to power for a good 1 to 2 years. Commonwealth always have a time period of when they think, how long, the shortest time that a military coup can hold on. So they're usually all right with 2 years. And we are playing along with that in covering up the coup because it is so difficult and it is so messy and it is not possible. But I want to tonight focus on something in my mind far more important. Because we knew the situation and we knew that the democracy in Maldives was precarious, when I was invited for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting first in 2009 in Trinidad and Tobago, we raised the issue of CMAC, suggesting that the Maldives feels that countries in transition should be on the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group agenda, not necessarily only if they've come to power through forceful means or for any such reason, but for positive reasons. And we've been arguing on that, and fortunately, the Commonwealth accepted that. It said, in considering the 2009 mandate from heads of government, CMAC noted the widely shared view that in the past, it had been too reactive and not sufficiently proactive in addressing serious or persistent violation of Commonwealth fundamental values. This view reflects the belief that CMAG has dealt decisively with situations where constitutionally elected governments have been overthrown, but that it had not always been able to address situations where Commonwealth values and principles were being seriously or persistently violated without governments actually being overthrown. So I had written to the Secretary General asking the Secretary General to place us on CMAG before the coup, because we felt that we were under stress, that there were a number of challenges, and that for us to consolidate democracy, there was such a strong need for international engagement, proactive engagement. Then in 2011, we met in Perth again, and the heads finally decided that this is the new mandate for CMAG. Unfortunately, after the coup, CMAG, or the Commonwealth, seems to have forgotten that it is a new Commonwealth, that it is a new CMAG. So in my view now, here is a golden opportunity for CMAG and for the Commonwealth to run the Maldives off its new mill, to get it through this process and keep us on the Commonwealth Ministerial Group agenda until there is a free and fair election in the Maldives. And when the situation is therefore addressed through that. Because, it's very clear, the recommendation says, in the cases of serious or persistent violation of Commonwealth fundamental political values that do not involve an unconstitutional overthrow of a democratically elected government, it says that there are, we could still remain in CMAG even if the transfer of power was legal. I am not for 1 second suggesting that the transfer of power was legal. What I'm suggesting is, look, even if that, we don't have to go there to keep us on the CMAG agenda and to get reforms through in the Maldives and to consolidate democracy and to have another free and fair election. And I have no doubt that we will very handsomely win it. CMAG goes on to say, when Commonwealth persistent violation of fundamental Commonwealth principles are apparently, if there are significant structural deficiencies in democratic institutions, apparently that's a reason for us to be on CMAG. Suspension or prevention of the lawful functioning of Parliament. The Maldives Parliament is not functioning, it's not having sessions. And it goes on to say many, many things that is exactly mapping onto the situation in the Maldives. So in my mind, it is rather silly now that we are thinking and talking about as if we are going to be removed from the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group. And to friendly countries such as the United Kingdom, I would also like to point out that you don't have to be a member of the CMAG to be party to these reforms. It says, in the spirit of the principles, any member state may draw to the attention of the Secretary General a situation of concern in a fellow member country. And so therefore, in my view, there's nothing stopping the United Kingdom government asking the Commonwealth Secretary General to keep us on the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group agenda. So I don't think that September 28th, when deliberations are made on the Maldives, that it's going to come out in any other manner. We will remain, we must remain on CMAG agenda. So this is an ongoing process. And we hope, and we very strongly believe, that the Commonwealth and the international community would be mindful enough of the situation in the Maldives. And also they would be mindful enough about other Commonwealth countries who would definitely are in similar situations, many countries. And if you like democracy and if you want countries to get democratic, I think the new CMAG is a pretty good organ to function according to its new mandate. And I hope that that is what will happen on September if the Commonwealth decides that the transfer of power in the Maldives was legal, now that's fairly silly. That would suggest, but for a feudal society like the Maldives, it's comprehensible. All transfers of power in the Maldives has been violent in the past. All. The only time there was a free and fair election and a peaceful transfer of power in the Maldives was in 2008, but mind you, we've had 1,000 years of written history. And every time the former king is either dead, killed, banished, or murdered. And this has always been the pattern. So when the Commonwealth or this Commission of National Inquiry report suggests that it is legal for the police and the military to demonstrate and storm the national security headquarters and force the president to resign, that is as much as saying that you have 2/3 impeachment majority in the parliament. So if you can get 300 special operation policemen to force a president for about 8 hours, then that is equal to or enough as much as 2/3 majority in the parliament. This is the feudal system. That's how exactly power was transferred in the Maldives in the past. Lords would come in front of the palace, they would call upon their demands, and the king would have to relent, or they would banish the king. So that's fine. That is the height of direct action. That is the height of actually democracy as we understand in the Greek sense of the word. And if every single citizen or a good cross-section of the people or a good cross-section of the institutions come out and disagree with a president or an elected ruler, then if the Commonwealth finds and seems to believe that that's fine and therefore there should be a transfer of power, then I think we can again be in trouble because many other leaders or many other policemen and renegade colonels would have similar ideas. And therefore I hope that CMAC would understand this, that if we can cover up, I'm willing to cover up the coup with the CMAC. I am willing to be party to it. But I'm not willing to be party to doing the same thing to another country. But I could do it for myself. But I can't be party to doing exactly the same thing to another Commonwealth country. So I again beg CMAC members to not to deliberate upon how power was transferred in the Maldives. I'm going to keep quiet, you can keep quiet as well. If you say something, this is going to set a very bad precedent. So we can all be party to the cover-up. And I assure you, I will be party to the cover-up. Because we want a better life, because we want to move forward, because we want development, because our people want health, education, sewerage, water, transport, housing. That's what our people want. And I hope that we can rapidly move forward after this September 28th meeting of CMAC and see that we are still on the CMAC agenda and that free and fair elections will be held in the Maldives soon. Actually, I have another topic that is very dear to me. And as it happens, now that I've seen a coup, I thought I'd relate to you how that goes on. But I think we must again, small countries must again and again and again focus upon climate change. And in my view, that is the principal issue of the 21st century. Big countries, we must all understand and agree that climate change is real. It's very real. And it is happening now. And somehow we must, this is, I was told by the Human Rights Watch or Democracy Now! in the United Kingdom that I don't know how that definition can be further explored, but this apparently is the first climate change group. Unfortunately, the countries who did not agree to reduce carbon emission were the countries who instantly recognized the new regime in Maldives. European countries who were very willing to sign a carbon emission agreement were the countries who did not instantly recognize the regime in Maldives. This is probably completely coincidental, and it's nothing. I do not believe in conspiracies at all, but here you have it. We must find a legally binding agreement to cut carbon emission. And to do that, we are not advocating giving up the good life, cutting down. It's not necessarily switching off. But more importantly, we feel that you must find renewable sources, other sources of energy. To assume that carbon emission and development are equal, in my view, is wrong. You can find a low-carbon development strategy. The Maldives made a pledge to become carbon neutral in 10 years. Now I feel that we could do it in 7 years. The technology is so rapidly changing. And I'm also very, very hopeful because many small countries, the Caribbean countries, Tuvalu, Cook Island, East Timor, Tonga, Samoa, and many, many small islands are willing to become carbon neutral or have plans to become carbon neutral within the next 10 to 15 years, and they want to reduce their carbon emission by 50, 60, 70%. Meanwhile, the rich countries want to do it by 10 to 12%. And that won't take us to where we want to go, which is survival. My message is, please don't be so silly. If you don't want to believe in the science, you can't be picky about it. If you want to believe in Newton's laws of motion, you must believe carbon emission and the destruction that it is doing to the atmosphere and to the planet. I mean, we don't have many of these planets. We don't have a planet B, and therefore we don't have a plan B. You cannot cut a deal with Mother Nature. And you just have to believe this. There are limits to natural boundaries. And we must find new technologies and new ways so that we may be able to leave this environment, leave this planet as we found it to our children. We have an obligation to do that, and you can't run away from it. Kuanoku, I hope, and I would very much like to continue talking on these subjects. I think we have some time to ask questions. I asked someone to show me when it is 20 minutes. I haven't seen it. Okay. So there are, we have time for your questions, and I'd be very willing to answer any of your questions. You know, I've been accused of arresting a judge, and please ask about it. It's difficult to give you an answer. It's complicated, but we've done it. This was the only gentleman that I apparently arrested, and it was a judge, and it's really bad, and you shouldn't do it. That's not the kind of thing you're supposed to do as a president. And that's not the kind of thing you're supposed to do in consolidated democracy either. But I hope that people also do try to understand what happened there. I've been writing about this judge to every single person that I know, every single country that we are friendly with. And I've been trying to find a solution for this. But unfortunately, this is where we are. But I'm not saying that this is the end of the line. No, this is a process. And we will win. We will come back. I have no doubt about that. I know I have charges upon me, and I know they want to arrest me. And I know they will probably do that. But we will come back. I've spent the best part of my adult life in jail. I've been tortured twice. It's not nice, and I don't want to be there. I don't want for 1 second to be arrested. But we have to face the reality of consequences. I don't see the international community robust enough to stop that from happening. It is very sad. I believe most of you pay your taxes believing that your governments would do something about these things. But unfortunately, it's not so rapidly done. And unfortunately, I might not be with you for the next few years. But rest assured, we will come back. And democracy hopefully will reign